Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, and as it is going pretty unsettled for the rest of the week, but relatively mild as well. It's looking likely we'll see bands of precipitation, either frontal rainfall or convective systems move through pretty much every single day, and most areas will have a risk of rain throughout the day, so not looking great for the rest of the week if you want anything drier. One advantage will be that it is accompanied by warmer temperatures. With the southwesterly wind, we're getting mild mid-Atlantic air, so temperatures could peak around 16-17 degrees later this week, but it won't feel all too warm if you've got cloud and rain accompanying it. As we look into the longer range, and we see in the GFS, GM, ECWF and the ensembles as we head into early April, it's looking likely we do see cooler, drier conditions prevailing. It's looking likely now high pressure will move over top of us and to our north and try to pull in northerly or easterly winds. We were looking at some of the charts over the last few days, and some of them had quite potent northerly or easterly winds coming in with some really quite cold Arctic air masses. Not seeing that as much today from the main models, perhaps some of the ensemble members still showing it, but the main models more have slack northerly or easterly flows under mostly higher pressure, so it should be relatively dry. However, with colder air coming in from the north and east, it will put a bit of a dent in those temperatures. So it could be decent out there. We could be seeing some sunshine, which would be pretty nice, but at the same time, those temperatures will not be all too great, probably low teens, if not high single digits, where that easterly wind does blow. So I'll have a look at that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So if you start on the live radar, you can see a big precipitation band moving through at the moment as those southwesterlies do arrive. It is pushing relatively cold air out of the way, proper Arctic air out of the way, and you can see a bit of snow over the highlands of Scotland and northern England. However, it is not cold enough at all really to see any snow elsewhere. It is generally just cold rain today, and because this precipitation band is moving in quite quickly, we've still got colder air trapped to the surface, so it's going to be quite a horrible day with temperatures probably around the high single digits, with rain falling out of the sky making it feel pretty chilly indeed. Now it should clear around 6-7 p.m, so around sunset it should clear most areas, so could see a relatively decent drier evening, but it still will be relatively chilly. But as I said, most areas seeing rain at the moment. It will be on and off throughout the day. There are a couple gaps in it, some thicker bands, so it will be on and off. So I wouldn't hold your horses for anything decent today. Now if you look at the temperatures, you can see it's pretty chilly through England, Wales and Scotland, milder through the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland as that southwesterly wind has probably moved in, and dry conditions coming out now, so temperatures there most likely into the mid-teens through this afternoon. However, as I said, through England, Wales and Scotland, not looking likely to see much above sort of 10 or 11 in the best of spots. Most likely most areas will be under 10 degrees, so pretty chilly, not too great, but it should warm up a little bit over the coming days, but remain pretty unsettled. Now if we do have a look at the UKV and see what that's showing over the next couple of days, you can see the precipitation moving in from the west at the moment, and it will continue to dominate through the rest of the day, and then around 6-7 p.m. it should clear most areas, and we could see slightly dry conditions prevailing. Overnight tonight it will be going drier for most areas before more rain does move in from the west and the south, and it could be really quite heavy, thundery rain through tomorrow afternoon in places. You can see that through parts of Wales and southwest England, really quite torrential rainfall. Could be some issues there with flooding if those don't move through all too quickly. And then through Wednesday night, a lot of heavy bands around. Again, it is hit and miss. Not all areas seeing this very heavy rain. It is pretty localised, but where it does occur, could band up. We could see a lot of rain falling. Into Thursday, that does continue through the morning, not looking too bad, but then we see convection taking place in the afternoon, so quite a few heavy, potentially thundery showers, and then we see this quite big low pressure system move in for Friday. Again, we thought this could have been a named storm at the start of the week and into the weekend, but it is now looking likely just to generally be quite a nasty area of low pressure. Wind gusts maybe 40 or 50 miles per hour, not the 70 or 80 miles per hour we saw from the UKV on Sunday, and big rain bands around, so it's going to be pretty miserable through Friday and gusty as well as this low pressure system does move through. And as back edge, you can see there's some real heavy convection through Friday afternoon, maybe some thunderstorms developing within that before slowly clearing and into the weekend staying reasonably unsettled. And this is when it's looking likely higher pressure will try to build in. You can see that to our west, high pressure trying to build in, and to our north, and you can see low pressure trapped more down to our south and our east. And this will start to open the floodgates to northerly and easterly flows. Now, if you have a look at the 2 metre temperatures and see what that is showing over the course of the next 5 days, you can see through this afternoon you're not seeing anything too great. 6 to 8 degrees through most of England, Wales and Scotland, 14, 15 degrees, maybe even 16 across parts of the Republic of Ireland. Beyond that, into Wednesday, still probably not amazingly in terms of temperatures, but maybe 13 to 15 degrees, but as I said, accompanied by rain and cloud, won't feel all too great. Into Thursday, again, 14, 15, 16 degrees. Again, if you do see some sunshine, it will feel decent, but again, cloud and rain accompanying that, again, will keep the feel-like temperature a little bit lower. As we head into Friday, will be quite an unsettled day, and temperatures will probably be down a little bit, with cool air wrapping in from the north, more down to sort of 10 to 13 degrees. Could be quite a wild day through Friday, and then into Saturday once again, cooling down slightly, especially in northern and eastern areas, down towards 5 to 7 degrees. As that easterly flow starts to come in, probably will start to turn it a little bit chillier. Wouldn't be surprised if temperatures didn't get much above the mid to high single digits in areas next week. Yeah, it could be really quite chilly. And we'll have a look now at those long-range charts. So if you do have a look at the GFS and see what they're showing over the course of the next couple of weeks, again, the southwesterly wind coming in at the moment, turning it's very unsettled. That low coming in off the Atlantic could be really quite horrible there. And as it clears, see the high pressure build to our north and our west, then we start seeing an easterly flow developing. It does initially get cut off by the higher pressure, building up before eventually, by middle of next week, it starts to properly come back in, and you can see all these greener areas that's more unstable and colder air coming in off the North Sea, and it stays cool and unsettled. Again, if this high pressure was further southwards and further eastwards over the top of us with more of a southerly flow engaging within it, then it could be quite warm and dry. It's the time of year where we can see colder high pressure, we can also see very warm high pressure. So the similar high pressure system further eastwards and southwards could actually be 20 plus degrees, but here more likely sort of 7, 8, 9 degrees in places. The best way to look at this is look at those upper air temperatures. Now if you do run it back, eventually as that high pressure moves in, you see that -5 isoform flirting with the southeast, definitely along the east coast, and you can see it just generally lingers around, keeping it relatively cool, and you can see not many areas in the east or the south get much above 0 degrees at 850 HPA for a good 5 to 7 days. That would be really quite chilly and quite frustrating. It won't be cold enough for snow, or maybe not even cold enough for frosts. Maybe further westwards we have clearer skies and stiller air, but it will definitely just be chilly and not make it feel all too great. Now you can see that cold air coming in on the potential equivalent temperatures, just generally very cool, cold air mass, definitely aloft and towards the surface, most likely turning us cold as well. And it's all remnants of Arctic air masses getting spilled out of the North Pole, and it's all coming our way around this higher pressure system. Not particularly great at all. Again, if we look at the 2 metre temperatures associated with this, you look at midnight down towards freezing in the day, look at that struggling around 7 to 10 degrees. Again, that doesn't sound all too bad coming out of winter, but what we should be expecting into early to middle of April is 5 to maybe even 10 degrees higher than this in places. So yeah, really not looking all too great next week. Again, things can change. Upper air masses can shift by a few degrees, and that could make all the difference. But at the moment, the general pattern is not looking great for anything particularly warm. Drier, definitely looking more likely. There will be rain around because it is not entirely under higher pressure, but generally a lot better than what we have at the moment. Now, if you look at the GM, see how that does compare. Again, southwesterly flow coming in at the moment. Very unsettled, that low pressure system later this week, and then eventually we see that easterly wind come in. Again, does get cut off quite quickly by the higher pressure, and more low pressure moves into that, so could hold it off a little bit, and towards day 10 we do see the high pressure over the top of us. Now the one thing about this GM run is it does something quite different to the GFS, where it has that easterly flow initially, but has that high pressure southwards and eastwards, and that does encourage more of a southerly flow. Now, this could be slightly warmer, but I must put a caveat to that, because that is not what we are seeing from the majority of ensemble members, which have a cooler, below average air mass around. So the GM would be warmer, would be dry, and you could even argue we could see maybe 20 degrees in this sort of scenario after a few days. Again, we look at the 2 meter temperatures in the day, getting towards the mid-teens perhaps, but again, that warmth would be building day on day, and if we did drag on that southerly wind, I wouldn't be surprised to get to mid to high teens by around the 10th of April, and maybe the early 20s if that did hold on. But as I said, not looking likely from the ensembles at this stage. Again, above average air mass there. Now, if you look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, unsettled conditions pushing in at the moment. Quite a severe low pressure system later this week, and then eventually the high pressure builds in. And as I said, it's similar to the GFS, it builds further northwards and pulls in an easterly wind. It struggles to get there initially. Cooler air in, but high pressure does topple as all because this little low pressure system here doesn't allow it to build northwards initially before eventually it does get going, and quite a cold, horrible easterly flow. You can see it is below average air mass moving in, chilly conditions, the -5 isotherm coming in, and you can just see it will generally be pretty chilly. So there's briefly milder air within that, but it is generally a cooler, colder pattern into the longer term. Now, this can be very well shown on the ensembles. Now, you can see these latest GFS ensembles for London getting above average over the coming days for the rest of this working week, really, and probably to the start of April. And then into the start of April, we do plunge below average. Again, the 1981-2010 mean here is a little bit off. I don't know what's happening with that, so I wouldn't really take this line as accurate beyond the sort of 2nd of April. It's extrapolated out, and then it has some data towards early April, but it seems to trend downwards, which I'm surprised with as we head into mid-April. So I wouldn't look at that in too much detail, but if we do follow the broad range of the ensemble members, you can see they all are, at least from early April, well below average by a good 2 or 3 degrees, and some, including the operational and control run, get down to that -5 region and really being quite cold indeed, and holding around that for a good week there from the GFS operational run. That really wouldn't be particularly pleasant, and that would be a lot of cooler weather. One thing would be that it would be drier. That is one consistency we're seeing now starting to appear. That's one positive development we've got. Upper air mass is dropping, but it is turning drier, which we didn't think was looking likely a week ago, but now it's looking fairly confident that into early April we will see something a little bit drier and a little bit brighter perhaps. Then again, all dependent on how strong that easterly flow is. And you can see this well emphasised by looking at the mean sea level pressure for the midnight run, and again, high pressure in the longer term. The dew points all looking cooler, definitely colder into the first few days of April, trending a little bit higher in the longer term. I think that's more uncertainty come into it, but at least there for 3 to 5 days, looking pretty chilly down to freezing dew points once again. So frosts could return, and it could be relatively cold feeling. And you can see that on the 2 meter temperatures, again, into next week, highs of 8 to 10 degrees, again, feeling colder with that easterly flow. Again, I wouldn't take the lows too gospel here, because ensembles don't do well with lows, especially under high pressure. And in this longer term doesn't improve all too much, maybe getting to 10 or 11 into the middle of April. So really not looking like a particularly big warm-up through the start of April, pretty much continuing the conditions we have at the moment, which gets more and more colder than average as we progress into the middle of spring, where I'd expect us to start to be seeing mid-teens, maybe even flirting with 20 degrees come the middle of the month, but not looking particularly likely at this stage. Now, to finish by just looking at the ECMWF ensembles, pretty similar, above average at the moment, trending to average to below average for the foreseeable future. Beyond that, definitely a little spike there around the 5th or 6th of April. That could be a repositioning of the higher pressure because it's cooler before and cooler after. So we'll have to keep an eye on what happens with that. But the general trend is average to below average with drier conditions, but definitely more precipitation spikes here. So got to keep a close eye on that and see what the ensembles do have in store for us then. We'll have to keep an eye on that, as I said, over the coming days. But the general trend is to be pretty unsettled the rest of this week, into the weekend, into the start of next week, high pressure building in, turning us drier, maybe a bit more sunshine, but colder conditions are going to dominate. Could be dominating for a number of days, maybe even longer as we head into early to middle of April. Not looking too great. Of course, there is a lot of uncertainty, especially beyond sort of the 5th of April, beyond 7 to 10 days. But the current trends of a higher pressure but cooler and colder air, and perhaps even easterly or northerly winds, giving us more of a winter feel out there into the early parts of April. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let's hope we do see something a little bit warmer and drier. I know some people love the cold weather, but of course, this is sort of the worst cold weather we can get, where it's not really cold enough for any snow or anything like that, or anything exciting, but it's not really warm enough, well, warm as we would want as we head into April. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.